All right, it's a signing day edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's been a long build up to this, and here we finally are. It's Wednesday, December 21st, National Letter of Intent Signing Day. That day that some people refer to as Christmas, but I don't really go for the whole Christmas thing because I kind of feel like, these guys have committed for a long time. You know, some of them are recent commits, some are new commits, some are new offers, guys that are just kind of, getting onto the scene. And it's sort of like you've been getting these Christmas gifts for a long time now, or maybe you've been envisioning these Christmas gifts for a long time and now you're finally getting them officially. So maybe it is a little bit like Christmas in the recruiting world. Either way, it's a big day. This is the day when they can all put pen to paper, send the fax or the email or however it is that they transmit those letters of intent and officially become Pitt Panthers. Of course, before we start anything, I always have to say, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Subscribe button's right down there, and you're going to want to do that today because we have a whole lot of content coming for you right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know that Panther-Lair.com, the website, Panther-Lair.com, is going to have a ton of content because we always do every day, but also especially on signing day. We'll have a lot of coverage for you of Pitt's National Letter of Intent Signing Day. But we're going to have a lot right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. In fact, this Morning Pitt is probably going to be a little bit shorter than usual just because, we're going to release this thing at, we put it out at 6 a.m. The faxes or emails start rolling in at 7 a.m. By then, there's news and there's different things developing, and we expect all these guys to commit. We're kind of running through the slideshow there. We'll talk about them all here. We expect them all to sign. We expect them all to be set, but things might change. And so we're actually going to step up our game here today on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And we're going to have not one special signing day live stream, not two special signing day live streams, but three live streams today right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Our first one's going to be right around 8:45 this morning. We're going to go live to talk about all the letters of intent that have already come in, all the guys that have gotten signatures, any surprises, any new developments, any guys we're still waiting on, any guys we're a little concerned about. Who knows what the storylines are going to be, but I figure we should get together for a half hour or so and talk about it. So 8:45, we're going to be live right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com to talk about everything that's happened to that point. Now, more will happen after that, right? Pat Narduzzi doesn't have his press conference until around 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we're going to go live again right around 12:30, sort of a lunchtime live stream, and just recap everything that's happened in the 4 hours since our last live stream and get up to date. Everybody should be signed by that point. If they are or if they aren't, we're going to have a lot to talk about either way. And then our final live stream of the day will be, our weekly live stream, the Panther-Lair Show, right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That'll start at 8:30. So in the span of about 12 hours or so, we're going to have 3 live streams, all right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So if you want to tune in and talk about the recruiting class or catch up on the recruiting class, see what's going on with the letters of intent, this is the place to do it. Now, as we're going live at 8:45 or we're going live at 12:30, we're going to be looking at the phone a whole lot to see what new letters have come in or any interesting developments across the recruiting landscape. But we're just mostly going to recap everything that's going on. It should be lively. It should be exciting. It'll be fun. And, of course, your comments and questions right there in the chat screen during the live stream right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So that's a lot to remember. It's a lot for me to remember. So click the subscribe button. Turn on your notifications, and then you'll get an alert sent to your phone whenever we go live. Hey, Panther-Lair's live for their first signing day live stream of the day. Better tune in. Hey, Panther-Lair's live for their second live stream of the day. Better tune in for the third. Better tune in. We get a lot to do. It's signing day. There are going to be lots of things to talk about, and so we need to have a bunch of live streams. So hopefully you can tune in for all 3 of them or 2 of them, 1 of them, whatever fits your schedule. 8:45, 12:30, 8:30. That's what we're looking at for today. Of course, the 8:31 will be our regular weekly live show. We'll have plenty to talk about. We'll hang out for an hour or so there. Those earlier ones will probably be about a half hour, 45 minutes. We'll see however long we need to talk about it. There are other things I got to get to today. Different signings and press conferences and this and that, but we're going to fit in 2 live streams in there. So 8:45 a.m., 12:30 p.m., 8:30 p.m. live streams right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And of course, we'll be talking about this Pitt recruiting class. And I think, so what I was going to say is because we're doing all these live streams, we're probably, this Morning Pitt here today will probably be a little bit shorter than what we usually get, just because we're going to be talking a lot today and we're going to be covering a lot of these topics today. When it comes to this recruiting class and this recruiting cycle and what we've seen out of Pitt over the past, this offseason in particular, since the Miami game, and really as they built the recruiting class, I think inevitably the biggest storyline is the rebuilt quarterback room. And this is what we're going to talk about a lot. I'm sure we're going to write about it a lot today. Pat Narduzzi will be asked about it a lot this afternoon. We'll talk about it a lot on all these different live streams. It is a completely rebuilt quarterback room. I mean, if you figure Kedon Slovis is already gone, Nick Patty is expected to go, Derek Kyler is out of eligibility, so that's 3 of your 4 scholarship quarterbacks from 2022 who are gone. Nate Yarnell is the one remaining. And Frank Cignetti has really rebuilt it with his guys he has picked. Phil Dracovic as a veteran transfer coming in from Boston College, presumably to be the starter in 2023. Ty Diefenbach coming in as the high school prospect to develop over the course of the next few years. And then in between them, Christian Veer, who's coming in as a transfer from Penn State, has 3 years of eligibility remaining. I think in your ideal world, he works as the backup to Phil Dracovic in 2023, learns the offense, and steps into the starting role in 2024. It's been a year of quarterback upheaval. Kenny Pickett was obviously out of eligibility last year at this time. You knew he was done. And they brought in Kedon Slovis to be the guy, but it didn't exactly work out the way everyone hoped it would. Obviously, you saw how Slovis played. It wasn't what he expected to do. It wasn't what the coaches expected to be getting out of him. And I think nobody expected him to be transferring after just 1 year. I think the thought was that he would come in, have a great season, and go to the NFL. I think that was his plan. I think that was Pitt's plan. And I think they intended to probably go back to the transfer portal again this offseason. Well, it didn't. They ended up going back to the transfer portal again this offseason, but it wasn't exactly the way anyone hoped it would be or anyone was expecting it to be. They went back to the transfer portal this offseason because Slovis decided to transfer and go somewhere else, which is, I think it was a little bit of a surprise. But then once the news started getting out and the rumors and you looked into it a little bit more, it sort of made maybe a little bit more sense than we initially thought. But for Frank Cignetti, really, there were three objectives in this offseason, particularly after Kenny Minchey decommitted in the middle of the fall. It was to get that veteran who could transfer in and be the starter this year. It was to get that young transfer who could come in, learn the system, and be the starter after this year. And then it was to get that high school player who could come in and presumably be the future of the position. In addition, along with guys they'll get in the classes of 2024 and 25 and so on and so forth. That was the plan. That was the goal. That sort of three-pronged objective. And those were the answers they found. Phil Dracovic, Christian Veer, and Ty Diefenbach. So that, I think, is probably the biggest storyline of this class. It's not the only storyline of this class. I mean, obviously in the transfers, you have a couple of storylines, most notably the WPIAL players coming home, Phil Dracovic being from Pine Richland, Donovan McMillan, the safety from Peters Township, who went to Florida, coming back home. And, that storyline was one that could have maybe built up a little bit bigger with Dante Cephas, the wide receiver from Kent State, or Derek Davis, linebacker, safety, running back from LSU. Cephas originally from Penn Hills, Davis originally from Gateway, but it doesn't look like Pitt's going to get either one of those guys. So it didn't quite work out to be all the WPIAL stars are coming home storyline, but Dracovic and McMillan are two big ones. I mean, those were guys who were high priority targets coming out of high school. They both turned Pitt down. Dracovic turned Pitt down twice. Turned Pitt down once when he went from Pine Richland to Notre Dame, turned Pitt down again when he transferred from Notre Dame to Boston College. I think you would say it was understandable that he decided to go to Boston College over Pitt. They had Kenny Pickett coming back. they had just gotten Joey Yellen, so they already had a transfer quarterback in the mix. But McMillan was a guy who Pitt was a really early offer. They were really excited about him, or he was really excited about Pitt, and he ended up shifting off of that pretty quickly. Most notably leaving Pitt out of his top 10 when he announced that, I think probably in May of his junior year, before he committed to Florida. Now he's coming home, and presumably to fit into that boundary safety spot. Brandon Hill, leaving early for the NFL, leaves that spot open, and McMillan, I think, is going to be the guy they look at to try and step in there and fill in for Brandon Hill. We'll see how that works out. But I think that's inevitably going to be one of the storylines here, is WPIAL players leaving the area and then transferring back home. Even if you only have two, it's still an interesting storyline to watch develop. I'll tell you, I think this class has another storyline, and it's probably a storyline we talk about every year, because inevitably anybody whose team, whether you cover it as media or you're a fan, and your team signs mostly 3-star recruits, you spend a lot of time talking about how they're underrated. That's sort of inevitable. Pitt got a bump on one of their guys. Isaiah Neal, the defensive tackle, moved from a 3-star to a 4-star prospect during one of the late rankings evaluations or reevaluations. But there are really two guys who should also be 4-star prospects, and it's a real shame that they're not. There's at least two, and it's Jordan Bass and it's Shadarian Harrison. Bass, a linebacker from Phoebus High School in Hampton, Virginia. Harrison, defensive back from Lakeland High School in Florida. And both guys, I think, have legit offers, good offers, and I think their tape absolutely backs them up as being 4-star prospects. And is it because they're committed to Pitt? Is that the reason that they're not ranked where they probably should be? I don't know. I think they've got offer sheets that more than, if you're going to base a lot of it on offer sheets, I think their offer sheets more than merit a bump to 4 stars. I think their film merits a bump to 4 stars. I think their teams, both winning state championships this year, merit. You're not going to give a guy 4 stars because his team won a championship, but it does speak to the level of play. When these were two of the standouts and the leaders on their teams that ultimately got to a lot of success. Jordan Bass didn't lose a game this season. His team went 15-0. I think Lakeland, Shadarian Harrison's team, they might have had one loss this year. So, you're looking at two guys who really, I think, only lost one game in their senior years of high school. And these were primary contributors. Bass played both ways. I don't know if Harrison played offense or not, but he was a stud on defense. And these are arguably the two best recruits in the class. I think certainly after Kenny Minchie decommitted, these guys solidified the top 2 spots with Isaiah Neal not too far behind them. And quite frankly, I don't even know if Kenny Minchie would have been above these two in terms of how good they look. I think these are legitimately underrated studs who, if they get to college and they work hard and they stick it out, are going to be really, really good. I think they've got that ability. And Jesse Anderson pops up on screen. I think he's another guy we have underrated. I don't know if he's a 4-star prospect, but he's pretty close. He's a stud. The difficult thing with Jesse Anderson is he plays wide receiver at Cardinal Gibbons, and Pitt is bringing him in as a safety. So it's a little harder to project, although he has played some defense in his high school career. But I think there's some real underrated studs in this class. And speaking of guys like Shadarian Harrison and Jesse Anderson and Isaiah Neal, I think Pitt's positional strengths on the current roster got stronger with this class. I think Harrison and Jesse Anderson adding to this defensive backfield where they've recruited well and they've churned out good players sort of year after year after year with strong play on the field. And then adding Isaiah Neal, as well as Antonio Kamen, the defensive end, and even Maverick Gracio, the late added defensive end, putting those guys into the defensive line room with Charlie Partridge, where, again, that's already a strength for Pitt. I think it just only gets stronger. I think you would agree, two of Pitt's strongest positions for the past few years have been the defensive line and the defensive backfield. And I think they only get better with these additions here with this year's recruiting class. So it's it's one of those things where the success, I think, is begetting more success and leading to more success on the recruiting trail. Wow, Pitt's defensive line plays really well. The defensive backs play really well. Guess what happens? You end up getting good defensive backs and good defensive linemen. So I think that's one storyline. And then one more coming into signing day, I think, is offensive skill players. As of this morning, there's 18 announced commitments, and a third of them are running backs and wide receivers. The number was 5 up until a little bit into the evening last night when Zion Fowler from New Jersey announced his commitment to Pitt. But of course, it wasn't actually his commitment to Pitt; it was recommitment to Pitt. And it's funny because for the past few months, I've been trying to type the word decommit or decommitted or decommitment, and the autocorrect often seems to think I want to say recommit or recommitted or recommitment, and I've never wanted to say recommit or recommitted or recommitment. But now I finally do, because Zion Fowler, who decommitted from Pitt in like October or November, somewhere around there, I forget exactly when the date was, is now back on the board. Announced that he is recommitting to Pitt and will sign with Pitt today. That gives him 4 wide receivers in the class. Kenny Johnson from Dallastown High School is in the class. Lamar Seymour from Miami Central is in the class. And then Israel Polk, one of the most recent commitments from St. John Bosco, national powerhouse in California, is also in the class. And I think it's a good group of wide receivers. Yeah, they missed on Hakeem Williams. They didn't get the 5-star wide receiver. But I think these 4 guys taken together have a lot of potential. I mean, you look at Kenny Johnson from Dallastown. You watch his film. He's got, I forgot how many, 9 receiving touchdowns, I think. He's got a 50-yard touchdown, a couple of 60-yard receiving touchdowns. He scored 2 kickoff returns that are like 80 yards. He had a 50-yard jet sweep. He's a playmaker. He's right there on the screen. And he's a playmaker, a wide receiver. I think Lamar Seymour is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the state of Florida. I mean, there's good receivers in Florida. There always are. But Lamar Seymour, I think, is right there near the top of the list, or should be. And then Israel Polk, I think, could really be a steal late in the process for Pitt. Number 1 high school football team in the country this year, according to USA Today's Sports Super 25 ranking of high school football programs. And Israel Polk is the number 1 receiver on the team. So that seems pretty impressive. I think he had 26 receptions and he scored 8 receiving touchdowns. So 1 out of every 3 catches, he was going into the end zone. I think they might have gotten a steal late in the process there. And so it's a good collection of wide receivers. And then the running backs, there's 2 running backs, TJ Harvison from Georgia, who's sort of a bigger back, and Montrevious Lloyd from Florida I think he's in like the St. Petersburg area. Is more of a versatile guy, kind of a split between receptions and carries this year. Kind of does it all for his team, and I think he's an impressive. I think his potential and his versatility are really impressive. So you talk about reloading, in the offensive skill positions where they're going to need to build those ranks back up for 2023, but also for beyond. And I think we could see some movement on a transfer or 2, particularly a wide receiver for 2023. But they need to rebuild some of those positions in the lower classes, the younger classes. And this year's class, 2023 recruiting class, looks like it's going to do it with 4 wide receivers and 2 running backs. So that's another storyline that to me really stands out, as we get started here on signing day. So lots of storylines, lots of things to discuss. This is just the start of it right here with the Morning Pit. We're going to have a lot to get through today. So remember, 8:45 a.m. we will be live right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. 12:30 p.m. we will be live again at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And then tonight, 8:30 p.m. we'll have our weekly Panther Lair show right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss any of it. And then after you watch this, if it's not time for one of the live streams, head over to Panther-Lair.com so you can get up to date on everything going on with signing day. It's going to be a busy day. It's going to be an exciting day. It's going to be a lot to read, a lot to watch, a lot to do. It's going to be fun. So check it out, Panther-Lair.com. And of course, right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Thanks so much for checking in today. It's going to be a busy one, so stay tuned. We'll talk to you, depending on when you watch this video, we'll talk to you at one of the live streams right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.